Welcome back to AM Agenda. With me now, Liberal MP Kelly O'Dwyer and Labor MP Nick Champion. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Okay, Kelly, on the Thompson matter, you've heard Tony Windsor, Stephen Smith, they're both saying that he should be given the right, as any Australian has, to presumption of innocence. What more does the Coalition want? Does it want the Parliament to circumvent the legal system in this case?
Well, it's not mutually exclusive. I mean, we all believe in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, but the fact is that the Prime Minister needs to come into the Parliament and make a personal explanation as to what she knew and when she knew it. So does the member for Dobell. We tried to do this yesterday. To not do this is displaying, what we've come to expect of the Prime Minister, an arrogance and a contempt for the concerns of the Australian people. Now, they would like an explanation around these very serious allegations that have been put, and it is not unreasonable for the member for Dobell to come into the House to make a personal explanation in relation to those allegations.
They're not mutually exclusive, Nick Champion, are they?
Well, look, our British heritage left us with some pretty good guiding principles. The rule of law, independent investigations, presumption of innocence. These are all very important principles, and they've stood the test of time. And, there might be this attempt by the Liberal Party, I think, to drag this into the political sphere, but it is absolutely wrong. People are not above the law. People have got to answer to the law, but people are entitled to the presumption of innocence, and that means that you shouldn't have a trial by media, and you shouldn't have this sort of hysteria around it. And it's really concerning, I've got to say, when you pick up the Sydney Morning Herald and there are headlines like, this about the Shadow Attorney General ringing the Police Minister in New South Wales. Very concerning. And questions to answer about that, I've got to say. Questions to answer about that, and these are all the reasons, these headlines like these are all the reasons why politicians should stand back and let investigations proceed.
Okay, Kelly, is that appropriate?
I mean, that's just smear. I mean, let's understand how this. Well, Nick, you had a go. Let's just understand how these allegations have come to light. The Health Services Union noticed irregularities in payments that had been made. Around about $100,000. Those irregularities were reported to Fair Work, Australia, for investigation. Now, this has been referred by the union movement. This is not some grand.
Who's best to investigate it?
Just let me finish. This is not some grand liberal conspiracy, Nick. This is something that is very serious and requires thorough investigation.
What about the suggestion of the Shadow?
Kathy Jackson,
specifically on that, on the Shadow Attorney General, can I just get a specific answer on that? Do you think that's appropriate?
Well, to give a heads up that these matters should be referred, and he was writing a letter. I don't see what the conspiracy is around that. I would have thought that that's.
I'm just saying.
Well, you are. You're smearing. You're trying to make a smear.
I'm just saying.
Kathy Jackson.
Let's hear Kelly finish, and then your response.
Kathy Jackson last night on Late Line made further allegations about the serious nature of what needs to be investigated here. Now, this is what we are saying, is that the member for Dobell needs to come into the chamber and he needs to make a personal explanation about the allegations when he was Secretary of the Health Services.
Okay, let's hear Nick, and I want to ask you about the Kathy Jackson comment, because she did say that Craig Thompson owes it to his members to provide that explanation.
Well, that's a matter of opinion. In my opinion, and I'll say the same thing to everybody else, the best person to investigate, or the best people to investigate allegations, are the appropriate body. In this case, Fair Work Australia or the police. It's not for the Parliament and it's not for politicians to roam around the country.
We're simply asking him to place on the record his explanation of the circumstances.
Okay, let's Nick just finish here.
Right. The matter of the fact is that you've got this investigation. They are the appropriate people to establish the facts, right? To establish the facts.
Well, look, I can tell you,
it's not for politicians and parliaments to sort of run around the place second guess
just quickly, because I do want to talk about
the Prime Minister should do this as a matter of course, and she should require the member for Dobell to do this as a matter of course, and she should require him to do it today. She should make an explanation today. She should not be compelled to do it, which is what the Parliament tried to do yesterday with the support of Andrew Wilkie as well. Now, it's unfortunate that the Greens take a very high-minded position on some issues, like allegations regarding the Reserve Bank, but on other allegations, of course, they're not prepared to apply the same sort of standards.
Let's move on. I want to talk about manufacturing. Big industry in your area, I know, in Adelaide with the car plants and so on. Do you think that the government has done enough thus far? Does it need to do more? We have the unions, AWU, the AMWU in town today. They want an audit. It's particularly in the mining sector, about Australian suppliers to ensure that they're not being precluded from contracts.
Well, look, I think the first thing to establish is how have we been going. And I can tell you from the co-investments we've made in the car industry, in my case it's in Holden's, $149 million to build the new Holden Cruise. That is the number 3 selling car in Australia. So we've got co-investment between the government and the industry. We've got a new car that's selling well, and more Australian workers, including more long-term unemployed people, are being employed in that plant as we speak. So that is a success story, an absolute success story, and it's because of the government's co-investment. The Liberal Party want to tear $500 million out of that green car fund, out of the automotive transformation scheme, out of those co-investment funds. They want to tear $500 million out and jeopardise the job security of every car worker and every component worker in this country. Now, obviously the high dollar has changed things a great deal, and we need to have a conversation as a country about how we best deal with high commodity prices, high dollar, and frankly how we get high technology, high investment and secure manufacturing in this country.
Martin Parkinson, the Treasury Secretary, is cautious about industry assistance, Kelly O'Dwyer, because he thinks that structural changes need to be allowed to happen in the economy. What do you say to that?
Well, look, there are structural transitions that do need to occur, but let me say this: the biggest risk to manufacturing in Australia right now is the government imposing an economy-wide carbon tax ahead of the rest of the world. That is the biggest risk. So on the one hand, Nick would like to sort of say, look, all is well, we're going to provide some industry assistance. Forget about the fact that we're about to impose the biggest burden on manufacturing, on steel manufacturers, in a carbon tax. Forget about that. Let's just ignore that. That is the big white elephant in the room. You can't ignore it. This is going to have a huge impact on viability and jobs.
Okay, let's hear, Nick, your response. Yep.
There is a bottling plant in my electorate. They are dead worried, right? Dead worried about European carbon pricing, excluding them from the European market. Right? And so they're taking action already to cut their carbon emissions.
Carbon tax?
Well, this is the whole point. Unless we have a carbon price, unless we start early, at low cost, we will end up getting locked out of markets in Europe. They're already talking about charging a carbon price on flights coming into Europe. These are all the things that are on the agenda.
We're seeing these.
That's in the New York Times. And you want to ignore
well, the front page of
these
the
issues.
Wall Street Journal says this is crazy. So if you want to start quoting,
let's move from that tax to the other tax, the minerals tax, because just quickly, Kelly, we've only got a minute left. But BHP record profit. Why? It's a super profit.
Is there anything wrong with
why not?
Our businesses being viable?
But if the tax is introduced and you want to find, but let me finish the question, please. $70 billion you want to find in savings. Surely, if they're making super profits, that Australians should get a stake in that. Their own minerals. Australians own those minerals, of course.
Well, of course. And we do get a stake in that. We have company taxes and there are royalty fees that are imposed already on our miners.
So you don't think there's any argument that the tax should remain?
Well, I don't think that there is any problem with having our miners perform well relative to the rest of the world. This is an Australian success story.
But if you won the election, do you think that there's any argument that you've got to find savings? Why not keep it in place?
Well, look, we've got to look at the books once we actually win government.
So it is possible.
And unfortunately, what this Labor government has done is put us increasingly into debt with their reckless spending and waste.
10 seconds.
What we know about Liberal parties. Joe Hockey at the National Press Club said there'd be a carbon price eventually. Nothing is surer. The same with the mining tax. Eventually the Liberal Party will do these things because they're the right things to do.
Nick, Kelly, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. And that's all for the program. See you next time.